Hey guys, in today's video I'll be talking about Forti Corse, a small Italian team that competed in F1 from 1995 until 1996 and didn't achieve much success at all in the short period they graced our sport. Let me tell you their story as one of the unsung zeros of Formula 1 history. Guido Forti founded his eponymous racing team alongside engineer Paolo Guerci in 1970. It ran in several lower feeder series formulas such as Formula Ford and Formula 3, mainly at both Italian and European level. They won the 1977 Italian Formula Ford 2000 Championship courtesy of Teo Fabi. They also won the 1979 Argentine F3 Championship thanks to Oscar Larrauri, and the 1985 F3 Championship with Franco Ferrini. Then in 1987 the team made the big jump up to F3000. However, instead of using a chassis from one of the three established marques already in the series, those being Lola, March and Rolt, Forti chose to have theirs designed by Dallara, who were completely new to the series. The 3087 chassis only competed in 5 rounds however, with future F1 podium finisher Nicola Larini doing 4 races at Ennepegusa, Brands Hatch, Imola and Jarama, with the best finish of 16th in Brands Hatch being surrounded by 3 retirements. The other race they contested at the Birmingham Super Prix saw Nicola Tessini fail to qualify. Then in 1988 the team ran a full season with Enrico Bertaggia, along with Argentine Fernando Crocieri doing the first 5 races. Bertaggia took 3 race finishes in Monza, Ennepegusa and Zolder, with the best result of 7th in Monza. Crocieri and the other 2 part-time Forti drivers, Enrico De Benedetti and Nico Fama, failed to qualify for any races, even when the team switched to a more competitive Lola chassis later in the year. The 1989 season saw Forti run one chassis driven by Claudio Langes, and he took the team's first points and first podium finish with 2nd place in Pegusa, then took 6th in Brands Hatch. These 2 finishes put him 9th in the driver's standings with 7 points. 1990 saw them take on F1 hopeful Gianni Morbidelli, who took 3rd in Po, 4th in Monza, and then he took Forti's first F3000 victory in Pegusa, a track which seemed to be good for them, then rounded off the season with pole position and a 3rd place finish at the season finale in Nogaro. Morbidelli's 5th in the driver's standings was bettered by Emanuele Naspetti in 1991, who took 4 consecutive mid-season wins in Pegusa, Hockenheim, Brands Hatch and Spa on his way to 3rd in the standings. 1992 was the team's first full season running a Reynard chassis, and the victory spoils were spread out this time, with Naspetti winning in Po and taking pole at the Nürburgring before leaving the team mid-season to join the March team for the last few rounds of the F1 season. Andrea Montermini picked up where Naspetti left off however by taking pole, fastest lap and the win in Spa, then the win and fastest lap in Albacete, giving him the championship runners-up behind Luca Badoer, also helped by winning several races before he joined Forti earlier in the season. 1993 was less successful as Olivier Beretta took the team's only win and pole position in the opening round at Donington and scored 20 points to finish 5th in the Drivers' Championship, while teammate Pedro Diniz failed to score at all. Then in 1994 the team dropped off again and Hideki Noda took their only podium in Pegusa. The drop-off may have been caused by the team's ongoing preparation for the 1995 season. They were going to step up to F1 for 1995, having been formally preparing the team since 1991. Guido Forti saw the failures of junior teams making the jump up to F1, like Onyx and Coloni, and identified the common denominator of problems as financial difficulties. Therefore, the 1992 signing of Pedro Diniz, who had lots of backing behind him, was a strategic move, and the plan was to help the Brazilian debut in F1. More money came from Carlo Gancia, who bought Guerci's shares in the team in 1993. Former Ferrari team manager Cesare Fioro joined the project in 1994, and former Grand Prix winner René Arnoux came on board at the same year to be a driver coach for Diniz. Pedro's dad Abilio also brought in several other sponsors to help the team get a concrete budget for the 1995 season, a fairly healthy $17 million. Diniz was obviously chosen as a driver for Forti's first F1 season, and the other seat was given to small team veteran Roberto Moreno. So they had money, they had drivers, but what about the car? It took inspiration from the previous work of ex-Brabham design consultant Sergio Rinland, and it also took ideas from a 1992 Fond Metal car that he'd also worked on. There were rumours that the Forti FG01 chassis was just a rebrand of that 1992 Fond Metal. It was a plump and heavy car, initially with no airbox and outdated Ford V8 engines. It also had a fully manual H-pattern gearbox, which would be the last of its kind seen in F1. Thus, with an outdated, overweight car, results weren't good. They managed to do some pre-season testing, but were up to 7 seconds off the leader at the test session in Estoril. The first race of the season in Interlagos saw Moreno spin off on lap 42, however Diniz managed to make it to the end of the race in 10th place. He was the last of the classified finishes and 7 laps down on race winner Michael Schumacher, with the next race in Argentina being even worse. Moreno qualified 11 seconds off pole sitter David Coulthard, with Diniz 1.5 seconds behind his teammate and 12.5 off the first place Williams. Both drivers were still running at race's end, but embarrassingly were 9 laps down on first place and 5 laps down on the driver ahead of them, that being the Simtech of Domenico Sciattarella. They both weren't classified as they hadn't achieved 90% race distance, despite not having any problems in the race. This was obviously a massive performance issue. The same thing happened in San Marino, as both cars were 9 seconds off the pace in qualifying and 7 laps behind the race winner of the 63-lap race, thus both being unclassified again. In Catalunya, they were 7.5 and 8 seconds off in qualifying, but during the race, Diniz had gearbox failure on lap 17 and Moreno suffered from overheating. Monaco saw both Forti cars get off the back row of the grid, as Diniz was 22nd and Moreno 24th, 4 tenths behind, although during the Saturday qualifying session, both Montermini's Pacific and Inui's footwork failed to get a time on the board. Diniz was the only team car to make it to the end of the race as Moreno went out on lap 9 with brake issues. Diniz was amazingly classified and only 6 laps down. I say only like that isn't still a horrendous margin. It was back to reality in Canada as they locked out the back row of the grid again, and it wasn't helped by Diniz spinning out on the opening lap. Then Moreno finished 16th and last 6 laps down in the 72-lap event. Then in the next 3 races in Silverstone, Hockenheim and the Hungaroring, the team suffered consecutive double retirements due to mechanical failures. Spa saw Diniz qualify 15 seconds off the pole time before the team scored their first double finish in 13th and 14th, incredibly only 2 laps down. Then on the first lap in Monza there was a crash at Ascari which saw the race get red flagged. Moreno was unable to take the restart and thus was listed as a did not start, but Diniz lasted the whole race, finishing only 3 laps down and not in last place as Tyrrell's Ukyo Katayama was behind him. Estoril saw another double finish in 16th and 17th with Diniz 5 laps down and Moreno 7. Then at the Nürburgring, Moreno retired on lap 22 with half-shaft failure, while Diniz was 13th and he beat the Tyrrell of Gabriele Tarquini. In Aida, it was 16th and 17th for the team, with Moreno the one ahead. They were still 5 and 6 laps down, though. Suzuka saw a double retirement, but the last race of the season in Adelaide saw a glimmer of hope for the Forti team. 2 drivers didn't start the race, those being Mika Hakkinen, who had a horrific crash earlier in the weekend, and Luca Badoer had electrical problems which prevented him from taking the start. This meant that only 22 cars started the race, and with Badoer's issues, the Fortis were starting 19th and 20th. Montermini's Pacific went out on lap 2, then Carl Wendlinger retired his Sauber on lap 8 due to fatigue. Taki Inui spun off as usual on lap 15, then Coulthard infamously crashed into the pit lane entry 4 laps later. Barrichello spun off on lap 20, then unfortunately Moreno did the same thing on the next lap. Schumacher then collided with Alesi on lap 23, putting both out, before Brundle spun his Ligier out of the race on lap 29. After Gerhard Berger and Heinz-Harald Frenzen's mechanical retirements on lap 34 and 39, there was a 23-lap stretch where no one retired, but then Irvine's Jordan had engine failure on lap 62. This high attrition put Diniz's Forti into the top 10 with Gasho's Pacific right behind him, looking to potentially score points if the chaos ensued. Herbert and Katayama retired on lap 69 and 70 of 821, putting Diniz into 7th, only 1 place away from points. Olivier Panis suffered an oil leak in the closing laps, but kept his car going to finish the race. Diniz was agonisingly 7th place in the classification, with the team having gone from last by a country mile in performance at the start of the season to actually being in the ballpark of some of the backmarkers by the end of it. Things were looking up for the team surely going into 1996. They acquired newer and more powerful Ford V8 engines and a sequential gearbox, and a merger was discussed with the fledgling Minardi team who were struggling financially. However, the team's whole world was rocked when Diniz decided to take his excessive funds elsewhere. He signed for Ligier after the investment in Forti had been seen as a waste by his family, as they were nothing but backmarkers. The team lost their upgraded engines due to money drying up and so had to go for a lower spec, but still better than 1995, Ford V8. The team decided to swap out Moreno for Luca Badoer, while Andrea Montermini took Diniz's vacancy. They managed to create an updated chassis with what money they had left, the FG01B, and Roggs was the first round of the season in Melbourne. However, the FIA had introduced a new rule to stop slower drivers and teams from being able to qualify for events. If a driver wasn't within 107% of the pole sitter's time, they wouldn't be allowed to start the race. Jacques Villeneuve was on pole position for the race and set a 132.371, meaning the 107% time was a 138.8. Both Forti cars failed to qualify, with Badoer 4 tenths away from a cut-off and Montermini 3.2 seconds away. They both qualified in Brazil, although Badoer was 1.7 seconds off the next slowest car, Pedro Lamy, and Montermini was only under the 107% time by a tenth of a second. Badoer finished the race in 11th while his teammates spun off on lap 26. Argentina saw both cars qualify comfortably, more than a second clear of the cut-off and only a second behind the next slowest car, Ricardo Rosset. On lap 24, Badoer collided with Diniz, ironically of all people, and flipped his car into the gravel, while Montermini finished 10th and 3 laps down. They both failed to qualify at the Nürburgring, then brought a new FG03 chassis to Imola and Badoer drove it to 10th place. Then in Monaco, Montermini crashed in the wet warm-up session and couldn't start, but this race was one of attrition just like Adelaide the previous year. With 21 starters, Verstappen, Fisichella, Lamy, Barrichello and Michael Schumacher all retired on the first lap. Then before lap 10, Katayama, Rosset, Diniz and Berger reduced the running order to just 12 cars. Brundle, Hill and Alesi retired, But just as things were looking up for Luca to potentially capitalise on a race that nobody seemed to want to finish, Villeneuve sent it up the inside of the Mirabeau corner trying to lap the 40, but Vidal didn't see him and turned in, causing both cars to retire. Considering Sarlo and Hakkinen crashed out on lap 70 yet still took 5th and 6th place, and Luca was 6 or 7 laps down when he retired, had he made it to the end, he could have got Forti's first ever F1 points and helped their perilous financial situation. The next race in Spain saw both cars fail to qualify, but before that their money problems had supposedly been solved as an Irish-Italian outfit called Shannon Racing had bought out 50% of the Forti team, and the group had experience in lower formula before taking Forti over. The team sported a new red, white and green livery from then on, but after a double retirement in the Canadian Grand Prix, the team's dire financial situation became worse, as it turned out that Shannon Racing had failed to pay Guido Forti after buying 51% of his team. Forti took Shannon to court for the money, but by the time the proceedings had been completed, the team had failed to qualify in Silverstone, then not even turned up to practice in Hockenheim. After its absence from a grid in the following rounds of the 1996 season, Forti Corse went bust. Had the team managed to somehow make it through 1996, the new Concord agreement that came into play the following season would have given them a financial boost and a chance to revitalise their prospects, with their promising FGO3 chassis and a very capable driver in Badauer at the wheel. They are believed to be one of, if not the last, privateer teams in F1, alongside Simtech and Pacific that had gone bust in 1995. It's a shame that F1 lost its garagistas and true underdog teams. I think in the modern corporate world of sport, a proper feel-good, small, family-run team would get lots of support. And no, Williams doesn't count as that team doesn't have the family owning it anymore. Anyways, with that being said, that completes my video on the Forti team and part 4 of my Unsung Zeros series. I hope you enjoyed it. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and tell me which teams I should do next. Also, please go and follow my Instagram or subscribe to my Patreon to see exclusive behind the scenes content and previews of videos before they go out. Anyway, thank you all for watching and I'll see you all later. I'm Nedzo. Bye!